folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. I'm sure many of you are wondering what happened to the video that I posted earlier today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry too much right now because, well, it's no longer there. I'm not going to give details on here because, well, YouTube doesn't seem to want me to. So I am making a separate video that will be over on BitChute. You don't have to pay for it or anything. It's just a different hosting service for those of you that don't know what it is. It's kind of like YouTube, but they don't censor you over there. There's just not as much activity over there. That's why I still am on YouTube. Anyways, just to kind of say what I can say, if you aren't aware of what went on, a particular someone that's a big name in the globalist community tweeted a tweet, and it was quite strange, and then an eye-opening, and then their account was deleted. So I made a video on it, and since then it was flagged, and I basically had a choice of leaving the video on YouTube and risking them shutting down and censoring my whole channel, or just removing it myself. So that's what I've done. Since then, after digging around, I really don't have a whole lot of information or confirmed information. Apparently, many people believe that that Twitter account is a fake or satire account. Even people within our own little kind of prepper community kind of think that it's a satire account. And you know, on the surface, that is what it looks like. So one would say, well, it's just a fake tweet, who cares? But there's something else that doesn't answer. Another question. That Twitter account is, in fact, the Twitter account for that person that many other large globalist organizations, prominent politicians, a lot of people, when they're tweeting and they mention this person, they tag that Twitter account. I'm having a hard time believing that all of these people over the last few months, prominent people and prominent organizations and all over the world, are tweeting and tagging this particular someone, and they're just accidentally tagging the satire account and not the real account. There is no proof either way, whether it's a real account or satire. People are just saying that it is satire because of the nature of some of the tweets that the person was tweeting on that account. I don't know. Twitter has completely deleted and removed all the posts in the account, so at this point we don't know. I'll go into more detail over on BitChute because, well, YouTube they're censoring everything. On that subject, let's talk about not just the censoring, because, well, I covered that the other day, but with everything that's going on, and again, I've chosen to be careful about what I talk about with the crazy election, because they want to censor everything, as you all know, every absolute tiny little iota of information, no matter how much you can prove it. They want to censor it. So I'm not going to talk about any of those specifics, but it's all happening. And I just listened today to a guy who was a former Fox News, Bill O'Reilly. Okay, I'll mention him. Bill O'Reilly was on Glenn Beck's show. Two big names in the conservative news media. And Bill O'Reilly said it, and Glenn Beck didn't disagree with him, but didn't agree with him. Just kind of left it open. But Bill O'Reilly believes that he's not winning, and he's going to concede eventually once he swallows his pride, and we'll have a new president. Well, here's the thing that I've been saying all along. I think, personally, we are at a point that it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter who's officially the president come January 20th at 12:01 in the afternoon. It doesn't matter. The damage has been done. The left has we've drawn our line in the sand over and over for decades, and the left has pushed and pushed and pushed us back. And we are more so than ever before in a corner. Many of you have said this probably for years. They're putting us in a corner where, our rights and liberties, we have no other choice. Now more than ever, that is true. We have been pushed into a corner because we've thought for decades that we could counter the socialist, communist, Marxist, globalist, whatever you want to call them, by peaceful means, by negotiation, by political maneuvering, by beating them at the poll, by all of these things, defeating them in court with the right justices, passing the right laws. We've believed for years that that was how we could defeat this, that we could take back our country. I think personally, now more than ever, it has become apparent that none of those are going to work any longer. Everything is so rigged. Everything is so manipulated and controlled. They have us beat on the technology level of being able to control social media, the internet media, just internet in general. They have us beaten in a lot of ways there, and we're not going to be able to win against them. The level of censoring is absolutely overboard, to the point that I am hearing personal accounts and online of people out there that consider themselves Democrats, liberals, Biden's voters, are also seeing it. And they're saying, wow, the media and the internet and the tech companies, they really are censoring people. It's so overboard that we're not going to beat this in any kind of traditional way. I feel, believe that the day of fighting this beast in a ideological way, or a legal way, or a political way, or whatever, has probably long since passed. And it probably has been long since passed for a while, but maybe only recently has our side finally awakened to the fact that that is the truth. I'm saying all of this to get to a point, so bear with me. As we realize that this is the case, we have to then realize that we have a choice. We have a choice to fight this by any means necessary so that we can ensure our freedom and our liberty for us, our children, and our grandchildren. Or we can take the path that this is too big, too much, and we're just not willing because we no longer have the grit that is needed to actually, for real, literally, to put it like the young people say, stand and fight a real battle. I believe that is the choice that is really upon us. Now, something may change over the last few weeks or next few weeks or months that may prove differently. And folks, again, I'm not just talking about the election. I think if you've watched me any length of time, you'll know that I'm not just talking about the election. I am talking about everything that's happening in the world. There is a great battle, a great war that has been waged for a long time that has now come to its pinnacle point against conservatives, against freedom, against individual liberties, against moral beliefs, and above all, against God. And it's become very apparent that that's where we are right now. And so we have this choice to make. Now, the problem is because we have allowed them for decades, little by little, to gain so much control of virtually everything. They control the news media. They control virtually all platforms of technology. They control the education system. They control, which is how they have been able to brainwash practically the last couple of generations, or at least the last generation for certain, of children. They control many industries. other than kind of, I guess you could say, blue-collar workers that are probably very dominant, conservative, the vast majority of industries that have the ability to really manipulate the world we live in are pretty much controlled by leftist ideology. And I assure you that that's not just a coincidence. It's been an effort for many years. I mean, you can go back and read in your history of the early movements of communism, and that was one of their things, to permeate certain sectors of society so that they could gain control over them. And now we see what has happened because we've sat on our arses for too many decades and allowed it to happen. Well, now we're here. So what do we do? What do we do? I've had this conversation recently. My wife and I actually were talking about it this morning. They control so much, especially with the censorship and the shadow banning and all the other terms that are being used, the gaslighting, the manipulation. Even here on YouTube, I know what would happen if I used this platform and started speaking even more openly about falling in line, shall we speak, about giving you your marching orders of when and where. This channel would be very quickly deleted. So then what would be my options? Well, maybe I could contact other YouTube channels and say, hey, they deleted me. Would you mind, we probably share a lot of the same viewers. Would you mind speaking about that? That would be difficult because then those YouTube channels would also know. If they stick their neck, their channel's on the line. And it would be the same way on all other platforms. Everybody knows because of how they are doing it. This is no different than what was seen in Nazi Germany and communist Russia, where they would go through a neighborhood. If someone didn't act the certain way, didn't walk the certain way, didn't toe the party line exactly how they were supposed to, they wouldn't go in and attack the entire neighborhood. They would go in and they would attack one family. And they would pull them out in the streets and they would make a scene and make an example of them so that everyone else in that neighborhood would see it. And everyone else would know, if we don't toe the line and do what we're told, we will be next. And we'll be out there in the street by ourselves while all of our neighbors are in their nice, comfortable homes watching it and doing nothing. That, my friend, is what is happening right now. That's what's happening with the censorship. That's what's happening with the censorship online. And that's what's happening with the censorship in the real world. We're seeing people arrested for standing up for their rights. And we're seeing the rest of the country, even the conservatives, kind of stand by and say, well, we support you and we're going to wave a banner and stand outside and say, yeah, we support you. But we're not really going to get involved to the point that it would actually risk our life and liberty for you. And if you fall and they take you down, we're just going to step back and we're going to be quiet and go about our lives. Well, when that happens, then everyone else is also at risk, because now everyone knows that if you stand your ground and you use force and you actually take the fight to the enemy, then you will be pulled out of line by yourself and made a scene and an example of in front of everyone. And so in that way, no one actually stands up against the enemy. This is a tactic, a very successful, historically proven tactic that has been used over and over again in time. And here we are today, we conservatives that espouse all these great ideals that are so well versed in history of this nation and the history of nations that we speak out against, like communism and Nazism that's happened in all these other nations in the past. And yet, even though we claim we know how it all works, we're allowing them to do those things to you and I, and we're doing nothing about it. Oh, it's fine for everyone to put a flag on their truck and drive around and honk their horn, or to stand on a street corner and wave a big banner. That's all fine and good. But how many of those are willing to actually stand and hold the line, and I mean hold the line, and pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors to fighting this evil enemy that has so permeated our society and our world that it's around every corner and under every stone. How many are willing to do that? Very few. Well, I can't go out there and fight them all alone. Well, you're right, you can't. That one person sitting there listening to my voice that is actually willing to go out and do that, it's not going to be any good if it's just you. It has to be a lot of us. There has to be more than just one person every so often that's willing to take that step and put his life on the line and actually do it and then lose, and then everyone else steps back and, well, that was really bad for him, but I got to go back home. I got a job. I got a wife. I got mortgages and stuff. I'm sorry. But I support you, in spirit, comrade. This is why they're winning. This is why they control so much. Because we allow them. No one really stands up anymore. How are we going to beat this? How is this going to change? How are you and I going to come together and actually stand against this when every possible way that we can really communicate, they control, they censor, they block? It's on and on and on again every day. I was watching a thing today my wife found and sent me, where even Apple phones now, if you try to text someone a link to a certain website, and they were using an example, it was some kind of Trump website about him winning, and they were texting that to their friend, and their iPhone was blocking the text. They would text it from this phone, and it never showed up from this phone, and they were trying it back and forth because it's even being blocked on the level of texting and emails. The amount of power that we have given them, and that most of us have just don't even realize exists. Like, we don't even know the power exists to give it to them. It's not like we know the power exists and we say, well, we'll let the left, these lefties kind of take control of it. No, we don't even know this stuff exists. The average person doesn't even know that you can do these things. And we've sat by and we've tried to be a good citizen, and we're not willing to stand up, and we're like, well, we may go out and we may march with our little signs because that's what conservatives do. We don't want to look bad like the left. Like, we don't want to actually start riots and stuff because that's what the left does. And we know that when the left does the riots, they get away with it. And we all know that if conservatives did the same, they'd all go to jail. And so because of that, we don't want our cause to look bad. So we're trying to prove that we're the good little Boy Scouts by just standing there waving a sign. And we don't want to look like those crazy, bad, evil lefties that are actually doing violence. Except the fact is that those crazy lefties that are doing all the violence, they're actually getting what they want. And the good little Boy Scouts standing on the street corner just holding their sign or waving their flag, they're laughing at us. So what do we do? My friends, I don't have the answer. But I can tell you that what we've been doing ain't cutting it any longer. We have to stand up somehow, some way. We have to be able to come together somehow, some way. We have to unify ourselves somehow, some way. Or my children is going to be growing up in a truly communist nation. My grandchildren will be communists because they have no other choice. Your grandchildren will be communists. They will be Marxists. They will be globalists. They won't understand what actual freedom is. Your children or your grandchildren, they won't understand it. They already don't really get it. Not in the way that you and I do. Not in the way that our parents or our grandparents knew. They don't even know their history nowadays. What's it going to be like in another generation or the generation after that? After this evilness, this actual absolute evilness has so permeated, has so taken control that its grasp has completely ensnared the whole society, to where there is no liberty any longer, where there is not even a resemblance of a republic any longer. Then what's going to happen? Nothing, because then we've lost. Right now, in this moment, there is still hope. There is still a chance that we can bring this back, that we can pull it back in. But we have to do more than just talk. We have to do more than just being nice. We have to do more than being afraid to stand up against the system. At some point, we have to be the patriots that we've talked about our whole lives, that we've learned about in history, that we have admired, that we wave their flags, and that we put their pictures all over the place. Those people, those men that we have honored and that we have admired and that we want to emulate so bad, that's what we have to be like, because what we're being right now isn't working. Even I, look at me, I'm just talking into a camera. I'm no Patrick Henry. I'm no Samuel Adams. I'm no George Washington. I'm just speaking into a camera. At some point, we have to come together and actually stand and hold the line and not let them cross it this time. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.